how you doing, little mama? Let me whisper in your ear. Hi, how you doing? Chris here. Just recording loosely on my microphone to set up this fantastic new episode about the Broom Cupboard. I just want to pass on a huge thank you to everybody who's been a Patreon supporter so far for this project over on patreon.com/OOTBC. Without you, it would not be possible. Your funds help pay for the transport, for the necessities around the show that make it be a thing you can hear on iTunes, on Spotify. And of course, if you're on Patreon and you're a tier 2 patron upwards, you can hear it before anybody else. You might be listening to this a week before the rest of the world, in which case, hello. If you're the rest of the world, hi, how you doing? You could have heard this a week earlier. But yeah, so thank you once again to everybody who's already donated. For those who want to get in on the action, patreon.com/OOTBC. There's a whole bunch of bonus content. But now for the main course. This week, I'm joined by the wonderful Katie Thistleton, DJ, television presenter, agony aunt. She's made a book. She's made people smile. She regularly tickles dogs. You know, for a living and just for her own amusement, really. She's amazing. She's got some fantastic stories about how she got into the world of broadcasting and kids' TV. So without further ado, here it is. Sort of in the middle of a bunch of people working very hard at like what appears to be important things.
Yeah, what team is this? BBC Articles and Connections.
Because they've got like Infinity War and Endgame stuff. Yeah, there's an Infinity Gauntlet on the whiteboard.
I planned this on purpose, Chrissy. This is why I booked this room.
You distracted me with you bamboozled me with comic books. How dare you, madam?
They are going to think, what on earth is going on in that room? Just as being weird in a glass box in the middle of the BBC.
There is nothing wrong with two adult human beings eating jelly babies and staring at you through a glass going, why have they got Spider-Man on the television? What's happening? Well, I'll tell you what's happening. Hello, and welcome to Out of the Broom Cupboard. I am your host, Chris Yonko Johnson, here once again to talk with the legend of kids' TV about their experiences, about the world of children's television, live entertainment, and this week also radio, being an agony aunt, liking dogs. Laughing. She's got a woman of many talents. I'm sat opposite, of course, the lovely Katie Thistleton. Hello, Katie.
Oh, hello, Chris Yonko Johnson. Although it sounded like you said Yoko, which I like. I'd like it if Yoko was your middle name.
I mean, based on if people's favourite CBBC era was the CBBC Office, I guess I broke up the Beatles in a way.
I think you probably did. I guess
in a way I broke the system. It's like he left, and all of a sudden the talking dog was put with everybody, and then I don't know. Yeah, did you listen to episode 1?
I did, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that it was like being in a room with you and Phil without having to be in a room with you.
Yeah, I think that's a compliment.
I think it is, yeah. Sure. And also, it's always weird to hear Phil being sort of serious, being interviewed quite seriously about his job and his career, and not being either a bit weird or being like hacker. So he did that. Remember that big newspaper article that was in like the Wigan, I don't know, the Wigan Post or whatever.
Probably the Wigan Herald.
Whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Available for free on the bar at Birdie Thand.
Yeah, exactly.
Take a copy.
He did gave him like a double spread in the middle of the paper, and that was all kind of like serious stuff about his puppeteering as well. Because he's got actually a really interesting story, hasn't he? And he's always been so passionate about puppeteering. But you don't really get that from him day to day because he's always being like wacky and funny and making you laugh. So.
Or very grumpy and still making you laugh.
Yeah, or grumpy but being funny with it.
What are we doing today, Phil? I don't know. I just don't want to be here annoyed. Well, get me up for this. It's like you're literally just recording a piece to camera, Phil.
But the best thing about Phil is that he will do all that whinging to you, but then the producer will come in and he'll be like, "Oh, hello, love, yeah," and just be really nice to them. So everyone just thinks he's great, and he's never horrible about them. When behind their backs, he's wishing them dead.
Or at least grievous bodily harm.
Yeah, at least a sort of an accident. At least an accident with life-changing injuries.
Yeah. Well, speaking of life-changing, I'm going to cut the rest of it off there. Oh my days. Katie, tell everybody, where are you from? Ooh. And don't say your mum, because we all know that. We know science works. But where are you from, Bridget? Where you grew up?
From Manchester, so from Ashton-under-Lyne, a little town in Tameside in Ashton-under-Lyne.
draw a mental image for those who don't know what the beauty of Ashton-under-Lyne looks like. It's big green fields, isn't it, and beautiful meadows and.
Well, do you know what? It is quite near to the Pennines, so there is actually a nice bit of countryside around there. That's probably one of the nicest things about it. But it certainly is a sort of dying town centre, like a lot of town centres are now. In terms of if you go into the actual town centre, it's like just sort of pound shops and betting shops, and it's a little bit run down and rubbish now. But where I grew up was really nice. Where my street and the sort of estate around there was really lovely. So all my family are still there, but I'm like in a different bit of Manchester now. But yeah, it's kind of like, is it northeast Manchester, I think? So basically...
Geography is never my strong suit, you know that.
IKEA
Never tell me
there.
to put things on a map.
No.
I was near the big IKEA.
Yeah, right. So that's how everybody knows what Ashton is. Everyone's
so
like, oh
yeah,
I've been to the IKEA. Yeah.
Oh God, that's upsetting.
We do have an IKEA.
It's alright, I'm from Swinton originally, which is famous for once having a B&Q that's now a B&M. So, just had to change one letter, move them in, it was great. Kept the gardening bit as well. Cheap as anything.
For the paint, you can get some good paint from B&M.
You can. They just all they did was just bring in a bunch of wool and some toiletries, and they were like, "We're B&M now."
B&M is great. Do you know what would be good if this podcast could be sponsored by B&M?
Oh, if they're listening, yes, please. So, little Katie, tiny Katie. This is part of the journey that a few people from last week have also highlighted, and they've sent comments now. There doesn't seem to be a direct path from what they've heard, especially from Phil and from things I've talked about before, of getting into children's entertainment and live television and things like that. From your childhood, were you a case of that? Were you somebody who didn't necessarily, this was never a goal, like working TV and radio and stuff, or was that always the dream?
It was always the dream to work in the media in some way from being really, really young.
I want to be a copywriter.
Yeah. I'll be an editor. Yeah, exactly. Some like obscure job that you wouldn't know about. I'm going to be a vision mixer at 2 years old.
I'm going to intern for 3 years and then be moved on before I can earn a staff contract. That's right, little Timmy.
Little Timmy. No, I always wanted to be a writer, and I basically think that comes from English being like the only thing I was good at. I was quite good at reading and writing, and I think one of my teachers was basically like, "Oh, you should be a writer when you grow up," and I sort of went, "All right," because I wasn't very sporty or good at anything else really. So I thought, okay, I'll be a writer. So I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to be like a journalist. And I think I did always sort of watch telly and listen to the radio and think that's what I want to do. Because I just thought, what can be more fun than that? In our free time, we choose to like read books, watch telly, go on the internet, listen to music, listen to radio. So what can be more fun than making all that stuff, really? So I wanted to be a journalist.
Making cakes.
Yeah, making cakes is good, actually. So I wanted to do that and be a journalist, but I always wanted to work behind the scenes. So I kind of knew from quite early on that I wanted to work for the BBC. And I suppose, now that I think about it, the only job I kind of envisioned was being like a newsreader or someone who wrote the news for a newspaper. Because I suppose that's an obvious job, isn't it? But you don't think about, we were just joking about it, but you don't think about all those other jobs in the media that go into it. You just think of the obvious ones that you see on the telly. Definitely never wanted to be a presenter. That was never...
It's not even a news presenter per se, like, or was news. So newsreader was the one, so factual specifically.
Yeah, I think I would want to be a newsreader because it was the only job I kind of really thought about. So I trained doing a journalism course after I finished uni. I went to Salford Uni and then did an English degree there, and then I did a journalism qualification for a year. And that was like a print journalism course, but around that time I kind of fell out of love a bit with like print journalism and decided that TV and radio seemed a lot more fun.
It's the tale as old as time with university as well. Like you pick the thing you want to do, you go for it, you work through it, and you come out the other end, and that's when you realise whether or not it's actually the route you want to take.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose also print was dying out a bit at that time, so I kind of thought...
Yeah, it turned like sort of, we're talking like late 2000s, early 2010s, right? So it's, yeah, absolutely, by this point, Twitter is on everybody's phone, and
exactly,
the media that you want to access is immediately there. In the morning, you wake up, open up your tabs, and you're like, "Oh, there's the news I want to read." So yeah. I guess like you're right. Yeah, that's a good point.
It kind of felt like it was dying out. Like the phone hacking scandal was going on at the time as well, so it certainly didn't seem like an admirable profession to be like a journalist at that time either. So I sort of fell out of love with it a bit, and also because I knew how competitive an industry the media industry is, I was always trying to get loads of work experience. So. The easiest way to do that, because all the local papers were dying out as well, was to do it at community radio stations. So that's when I started doing the news for community radio stations, writing the news, reading the news. And then I remember just one day I was doing the news at North Manchester FM, and I sort of sat there and I looked in and I could hear the DJs like chatting away and playing music and stuff, and I thought, I could do that. Like, I never stop talking. That's the one thing, the one skill I've always had, is that I never shut up talking. I've always been a storyteller. I've always been a gossiper. I've always been like going into school, seeing my mates, saying, did you see that on the telly last night? Oh, guess what? I heard about this. So I thought I could sit there and talk crap on the radio all day and play some music, definitely. So I started doing my own little radio shows. But still at that point, weirdly, I didn't think, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to be on radio. What? Like, I just didn't. I thought when I was doing all that, I was doing it for experience, for behind the scenes. I was doing it so that when I went for job interviews for being a researcher or whatever, I could say, I've put these shows together, I've researched stuff for my own show. Yeah. So I had no dreams of being on the telly or on the radio, and I don't know whether that's because I felt like that was setting my ambitions too high, whether I thought that was just so unattainable, or whether I thought I didn't quite have the confidence for it. I don't really know, but I never really saw that as my future. I saw sort of working behind the scenes, being a researcher, being an AP, being a producer as the route that I wanted. And that was always what I set out to do.
So you always wanted to know more how the sausage was made than what it looked like.
Yeah, I'm creative and I like writing and I like coming up with ideas and stuff. So I wanted to do that, and I just wanted to be part of that buzz of telly and radio, and it just seemed so fun, especially when I started working at the BBC and getting, amongst all that.
On brand, well done.
Yeah,
get
amongst it. Yeah. So I started. My first job for the BBC.
Done your research.
My first job for the BBC was as a production management assistant, which I guess is probably similar to like a runner, but the radio version of it, or kind of like the admin job. It's kind of like being a production coordinator. So I was like booking trains, booking taxis for people, doing sort of schedules and rotas and things, and generally just sort of helping people out with their admin in the team. So I did that in Radio 4, both in Manchester and Birmingham, for probably about a year in total. And then I got a job as a PA in children's at CBBC and CBBS, and that was really just I was trying to desperately get a job back in Manchester because I was working in Birmingham. I really wanted to work in Media City. I didn't actually think, children's is where I'm meant to be, but I thought, well, that looks fun. CBBC and CBBS, obviously, like, that's going to be fun. And then I got the job, and loads of people said to me, oh, you'll never be in a creative job ever again now. Like, once you get stuck as a PA, you'll never do anything creative. And I thought, well, that's a load of rubbish. But obviously did panic about it a bit. So I carried on doing all my community radio shows and writing blogs and stuff. Yeah, you kept the creative. Exactly, yeah. So that when I could go for researcher interviews, which I did in that time when I was a PA, I could sort of say, oh, look, I do my own radio show, I do this, I'm still doing that creative stuff. And then I eventually got a researcher job for CBBS, and I was like, oh, perfect, this is what I'll do forever. I'll just sit here and I'll write little songs for babies, I'll do a 9 to 5, I'll go home and I'll live a lovely life. And then the boss of CBBC was like, do you want to come and audition to be a presenter for the CBBC Office? And then that all absolutely... You went,
sure, I've got nothing else on this lunchtime. I'm sure they'll go nowhere, but I'll learn a thing or two.
And then my plan to have a simple, carefree life as a CBBS researcher completely...
horribly backfired.
And my life changed.
Why do you think people were sort of saying... oh, if you get into that position, you get stuck there, like, that's it now. What do you think that trap was that they were all referring to?
I think that probably came from people who were a bit bitter that they weren't where they wanted to be. And I think there's a lot of that in this industry. A lot of people feeling a bit hard done by, feeling frustrated that they're not where they want to be. I felt like that lots of times. You felt like that, I'm sure.
Tell me about it.
Like, it's very easy to become like that. And I think that probably came from people who were feeling a bit that way. So I think you have to just completely ignore that, because it was obviously a load of rubbish anyway.
It sort of ties into one of the biggest risks of any kind of line of performance and journalism, anything where you're putting yourself in front of a camera or behind a typewriter, figure of speech. Nobody uses typewriters anymore, apart from George R.R. Martin, which is why Game of Thrones takes so long to finish.
Does he still use a typewriter?
Not a typewriter, he uses a 90s word processor.
Oh, sort it out, George. We've been waiting for the
Get on it, lad.
next book for about 60 years. Not that I've read any of them.
Get on it.
It's nice skin off my nose.
You practically read them.
Yeah.
But I think that what maybe they're referring to in that case is people get comfortable. They sort of get comfortable and have, like you say, that 9 to 5, and as far as like adulting is concerned, the income that comes with that, the stability, which is something that is not guaranteed when you are in the more creative avenues per se. That is there's a risk factor to making art or participating in art or broadcasting or information or journalism, like that's, you know, it's a constant juggling act in a way. And I wonder if people were trying to warn you away because they were like, oh, no, like, I don't go out there. It's safe here. Stay here. Stay here. But I don't think you get fulfilled unless you give it a try.
Well, I think I would almost advise people that myself. If you've not got the sort of personality to be able to deal with it, I think it can be really devastating. I mean, there's no, you know, it doesn't surprise me that so many creatives have mental health problems, have depression, take their own lives. Like it's rife amongst people who are creatives or people who are performers and in the public eye. And I think a part of that is the job, and I think a part of that is the type of personality you have anyway to get into those jobs.
Oh, sure.
You're someone who maybe overthinks life a little bit. You're someone who's always reaching for something else, something bigger, something better. And I think that's what gives you the ambition and the motivation to achieve those things in the first place. But I think it can be really scary as well. But I don't think I ever would have settled just being in that job. Like I didn't want to be a presenter, and I wouldn't have been trying to pursue that. But I think I would have been trying to write books. For example, I always wanted to write a book. I always thought, what can be better than having a novel, holding a book in your hand and you've written it. So I always wanted to do that. I would have been doing that. I would have been probably sending in scripts to BBC Drama and BBC Comedy and trying to get things commissioned. I wouldn't have gone home at night and just sort of sat and watched the telly because that just wouldn't have been in my personality.
There's an itch that needed scratching.
Yeah, exactly. So as much as I complain sometimes about what you were just saying, that you can never just sort of settle and go, oh, okay, I won't do anything for a month other than my 9 to 5. Like, you have to constantly be thinking about what's next. As much as I complain about that, I think I'd be bored if I didn't have it.
It's true. I think the things that can get you through that kind of period where it is a little tough is you have to remember that it's okay to step away from it from time to time if need be. Like, if it's the financial side and that's your big worry, good, go and do something else for a bit. Focus on that. It's completely healthy. But you can sometimes worry that, wait, I've made this sort of thing and I don't want to go back. It's not going back. It's just doing something different for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And also having a strong family friends network. You have one of the closest families I have ever met. You lot are like you're like one entity. Do you know what I mean? You're like this Christmas tree full of very bright, happy lights who are always taking the mick of each other and having a lovely time and just getting on like a house on fire because of a Christmas tree that's very bright.
We are actually. We are very like cut one, the other bleeds. Like, you know, and I don't know how I've looked out with that, to be honest, but we are a really close family. It's not to say that there aren't, you know, difficulties and there aren't people who've got problems. We've all had our problems and stuff, but yeah, it does work out really well. Something about the formula of how our family works has been really successful. My brother and sister are a lot older than me, so I was an afterthought, very much so. So my I just felt sad. I was a happy afterthought. Okay. So my sister's 18 years older than me, but my brother's 16 years older than me. So they were essentially pretty much adults, really, when I was born. So for that reason, I was almost a bit like an only child in a way growing up.
You didn't have any similar age siblings. You didn't.
Yeah, they didn't live at home most of the time.
The kind of archetypal way that you would grow up with a sibling. Yeah.
I think they didn't live at home most of the time when I was growing up, so it was a lot of just me, my mum and dad in the house. And I actually think that really helped me to have such an imagination. I played on my own a lot. Like, I had friends, of course, obviously, but I actually quite liked my own time. And I think that helped me be quite imaginative. And even now, I need my own time. I need my own space.
Yeah.
Like, I need like half an hour a day to sort of sit on my own and gather my thoughts. I'm not one of those people that can be constantly surrounded by people and socialising. And I wonder if that comes from me being able to have that quiet time on my own as a child, and that time to sit and read and write or play with toys and just, you know, imagine things without someone else coming messing it up. But also what was great is it almost was like I had a second mum in my sister, not a second dad in my brother because he's not mature enough. But and also it meant that I had nieces and nephews who are actually quite closer in age to me than my siblings are. So in a way, I've had the best of both worlds. I've had like the older siblings, the younger siblings, but none of them have lived with me, so we've not fallen out.
And that's the key to familial success, everybody.
We've had the distance to like not do each other's heads in, so
all live in different buildings.
Yeah.
And come together for barbecues.
Exactly.
Speaking of, like, we had one a couple of days ago. It was my first time eating meat in forever, and it was a shock to the system.
Why have you not been eating meat?
We've gone pescatarian at home.
Oh, you told me about this.
Yeah. Lucy's gone full on pescatarian. I'm basically an at-home pescatarian.
I'm impressed.
It's my stomach isn't. I'll tell you that for now. It doesn't like me anymore. It's like, what have you put inside me?
That's interesting, because you'd think that your stomach your stomach would reject meat more than anything else.
Oh, I think that's the thing. If I do dip backwards, like I did at this barbecue, my body despises everything that I do.
Yeah.
But enough about meat. What I want to know is...
What's funny is, you probably say the word meat more than anyone else I know. That's the irony here.
Keywords, isn't it? Meat neck is another one.
Yeah.
Necky is another one, but that's an adjective no one's ever used.
I'm just going to take this moment to tell everyone about two of my favourite Chris quotes ever, which was once... Who came into? I think it was Naomi Wilkinson was in CBBC for the afternoon doing like promoting Naomi's Nightmares Adventure.
There's been 4,000 shows. It's fine.
Naomi's
it's okay.
Naomi's Nightmares of Nature. I merged about 4 shows in one then. She was in the CBBC Office or CBBC HQ as it was by then, and you'd popped in, I think maybe to do some voiceover or something, and you just went, "Naomi, clutch me like you would any treasure."
Was that when I first said it?
Yeah, I think so. See, I remember it. That's how poignant it was to me, because it was just, I cried. There's moments with you, Chris.
I only remember it because you remember it, if that makes any sense.
There's moments with you, Chris, where it's just a normal moment, everything's fine, everything's normal, and then you make me laugh to the point where it's like, you're hysterical instantly. And Phil does the same thing. Both of you do that thing where you just drop a little nugget.
There's something, little nougat.
There's something that doesn't just make you titter, it literally makes you cry with laughter. And the other one was once when we were in the makeup room and we were chatting about something quite serious, like we must have been whinging about, I don't know, our contracts, or like we were like having a big whinge.
What are you talking about? That topic never comes up as a moan working in television or the BBC, ladies and gentlemen.
And then you, to sort of lighten the mood, because you can never stay serious for long, like you'd been serious for a good minute or so, and you were just like, anywho, have a little cup about it. And you presented to like me and Kat Sandian from CBBS an upside down deodorant lid that looked like a cup.
Is that what it was?
Yes! And you said, have a little cup about it. And it is one of my favourite things ever, and I'll remember it till the day I die. When I've got dementia, I'll probably be uttering that from the care home.
Like, she was slightly responsive today, Mr. Johnson. It's all right. I know what to say. Just like, grab a deodorant lid.
Have a little cup about it. I do worry about that. You know, when they say when you get old and you start to lose your marbles and you go back to your early years, I think, God, if we go back to the CBBC years, it'll be like one mad nightmare, won't it?
Everyone's good. Yeah, that everyone around us won't make sense, but a dog will.
Yeah.
Like a dog will make sense and will be annoyed that it isn't speaking.
Yeah, it'll just be weird. Like if we go back to some CBBC sketches, that's where our brain takes us back to one day. We've got no chance. It'll be like we've taken drugs or something.
As long as it's nothing from the Chris in London era, I'll be fine. Some odd, seriously, some of the material that we were handed during that period.
Really?
Bizarre. Like not to take a dump on anyone who was writing it, but there were some very weird mandates at that point in time that resulted more in promote the programme by doing a dance. It's like, what the hell does that even mean?
I miss the sketches kind of days. I mean, I do and I don't, because again, if they were well written, they were brilliant. If they were badly written, they were just a real drag. But when Andy Potter was producing you and Phil on afternoons for a while, and I was on mornings with Dodge, oh, just the stuff you did was amazing. I mean, that was bizarre. The Pellets era.
Johnston Pellets. Jesus wept.
And you did a send-in one afternoon where you just asked kids to send in their pellets.
Emailing...
So they just emailed in the word
pellets. And then me and Hacker were presenting it like, no, don't do that. That's ridiculous. Don't do that. Ignore him. Here's Arthur or whatever. And then after news round, it came back and the link was us going, hi everyone, we were going to do XYZ, but we've had an overwhelming amount of emails, so we have to respond to them. This first one's from Jessica. Hi, Jessica. Jessica says, pellets. This next one is from Matt. He says, pellets. You got one there? Yeah, this one is from Joe. Hello, Joe. He says, pellets. This one is from... And we just read the word pellets for an entire link. And the next day, the then executive producer... took our producer Andy to one side to basically tell him off for doing that link because he thought it was the biggest waste of time ever, because of course they have to keep an eye on things and sometimes they're a bit overly, like, make sure it's about the show, make sure it's all about promotion, don't be just faffing around. And Andy got out of being told off by saying, yeah, but we got like 800 emails in 20 minutes. And they went, oh, all right, carry on.
Exactly, it helped the stats, didn't it? It's brilliant. That stuff's never a waste of time, because if it's funny, it brings you in, and then if people are watching because you and Hacker are hilarious, and then they'll get a bit of that advertising, won't they? And they will stick around for the shows. That stuff's always worth doing. The silly stuff is the best stuff.
So what brought you into that world specifically? So you approached about audition, and this was as they were looking for a presenter to replace Ian Sterling, because Ian was about to leave within the next 2-3 months.
Yes.
Did you know that he was going to leave when you were approached?
No, I didn't actually. I knew they needed a girl, and that
it'd been too many men.
It had been a sausage fest for a while. It really had. It was like that barbecue you were at a couple of days ago, Chris. The meat on display was... There was a lot of meat on display.
Loads of meat! So,
yeah, basically, weirdly, because I'd been working for the two controllers for 2 years, I knew all this stuff anyway. I knew that there'd been talk for a while that a girl presenter was needed. Honestly, not at one point did I think, oh, I could do that. Like, I literally, I had no interest in that. And do you know what? I think that probably annoys people when I say that, because it's a lot of people's dream. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be like, oh, I didn't even want it, guys, but they just gave it to me. It was thrust on me, because obviously it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. But
it's annoying, that, isn't it?
Yeah, but also I don't know whether I just thought, somewhere subconsciously, I must have thought, oh, I'm not a performer, I'm not good enough to do that. People who do that are probably from drama school, etc. Or
a common misconception, actually.
Yeah, very common misconception.
Even within education, I've been told that in education people tend to be told, oh, if you want to get into that, no, you need to go to drama school.
Oh,
not true.
That's the biggest load of nonsense ever.
It's a skill set you can use. I find a lot of the CBBS guys come from drama school and drama backgrounds, but I think there's more of a performance art in that, whereas CBBC is a lot more of a personality-led format, which, based on how it's been treated at the time, is either more comedy or more factual entertainment or more just casual T4 style, kind of like, hey, we're just mucking about in a room.
You know, recently,
have a little cup about
it being like me and Lauren being two of the main ones, like we both come from a similar background in that we trained as journalists and we both worked behind the scenes. So, and now, obviously I wasn't very smart, because now when I think about it, I'm like, it's the same set of skills. You know, if you're a journalist, you're a storyteller. If you're a writer, you're a storyteller, and that's not to say every writer and every journalist can present, because they couldn't. You know, lots of news readers and journalists are quite serious, and you've got to have a certain personality as well, obviously, to do children's TV.
But there are avenues.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But it's a similar set of skills, and it never occurred to me. I was still dead set on getting a research job. Like, I used to look at what you guys did, and I'd watch it, and I'd think it was hilarious and brilliant, and I definitely wanted to say, like, work for the Pres team, you know, as a researcher or whatever, or work for one of the teams doing that, but yeah, not as a presenter. So anyway,
Dodger's fluffer.
Yeah. So
as in judging him.
Yeah,
for anyone writes
that means something else in certain worlds,
certain circles,
certain movie companies.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so yeah,
modern BBC, ladies and gentlemen, modern BBC. None of that filth.
Basically, I knew they were after a girl, and yeah. So when they approached me, I remember it vividly. I was walking back from the studios with Cheryl Taylor, who had just taken over as controller, and I was just about to leave being her PA to be a researcher on CBBC. I'd just got that job. Damien Kavanagh had left to go to Channel 4.
Yep, what was Damien's official role?
He was controller of CBBC.
Oh, because so I was thinking of Joe for a second. I'm confused. Yeah, no, Damien was controller.
Controller of CBBC, yeah. So he left. I'd worked for him for 2 years, and when he was leaving, I thought, right, you know what, this is my chance to ramp up these interviews and go and do what I want to do, which is do a creative job. So I got the researcher job. I was just about to leave. Cheryl started. We were walking back from Blue Peter one day, just having a chat, and she said to me, have you ever thought about being a presenter? And I said, no, I haven't. And she said, if we sent you for an audition, would you go for one? And I was like, yeah, I would do. I mean, I thought, well, that's not something you can say no to, is it? Especially when, like, the boss of the channel you work for is saying, let's do it. So I went home and I didn't really think anything of it. And then the following week or whatever, I think it was the weekend following, like Tuesday, Annie Dixon, who was the exec producer for presentation at the time, came over to my desk and obviously knew me anyway because I was a PA, and was just like, so we put you in a screen test for next week. And I was just like, what?
Wait, hang on, what?
This is bizarre. I remember going home, having a Halloween party that weekend, it was Halloween, and telling like my mates at Halloween party, and I was like, they're giving me a screen test to be a presenter, and they were all like, what? This is bizarre. That's how much I'd never presented a desire to be a performer in any way. Like, I did GCSE drama, but ever since then, you know, I was like a fun person. I was a loud person. I had always been the one that, you know, assisted Pudsey, shall we say, whenever Pudsey needed assisted. I'd always be the one if they were like...
That's not a euphemism.
Yeah. If they were ever like...
because that's a great euphemism.
if they were ever like, look, we need some extras in behind the scenes in Blue Peter messing about dressed as bananas or whatever, I would always volunteer. Like I was, a fun person in the department, I suppose, that was young and wanted to get involved with those things. And I never shut up talking. And I was really interested in the content and I knew about all the shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think those were all the reasons that perhaps I was put up for it. As you were saying before, in Pres, part of your job as the presenter is to promote the shows, and they knew already that I knew a lot about the shows from my previous job. Also, I think I was just there, wasn't I? Cheap and available and ready to start the following week. So yeah, did my screen
okay, we've got auditioning, fantastic. You got the job. Wait, what? Start tomorrow. Wait, what?
Yeah.
You'll need a key card for next door.
I think I when I first got the job, I honestly felt so stressed and nervous about it because I just thought, people are just going to think, why has she been given that job? And I didn't want people to think I'd been there sucking up to the controllers for 2 years trying to be a presenter, because that really was not what had happened at all.
Internally, that was never anyone's perception whatsoever. Because you can tell when people are toadying. You can tell when people are sucking up a little too much. It's, in the work environment, because it's good. Here's a tip for everyone at home. It's good to be enthusiastic, especially within creative fields, and to be helpful and to want to learn and to want to help. But if you are clearly after a certain thing and it shows so much, it comes across more as a desperation. And it's not a pull for people in that field. They don't want you to be on board because they're like, they want to be here for the right reason. They're trying to force their way in. If you're just honest and, passionate, great. There was no buzz when you started of what's she doing? Just getting what's all that? No, it was literally just okay. She's bloody lovely. Yeah, no, she's doing links tomorrow. Come on, it was
you and Phil were really lovely because you both sent me a message, added me on Facebook and sent me a message both separately saying welcome to the team, or welcome to the team, Cocker, from Phil obviously. And honestly, that just made me feel so much better because I remember walking past the Pres department one day, in the office when I was still a PA when I just got the job, and just feeling really uncomfortable. And I was I knew all these people anyway, I'd been working with them, but I just remember thinking, oh God, I feel really they're just thinking, who is this? But that obviously went away once I started working with everyone. Everyone was really lovely. But I think you're right. I think there's a certain eye roll that happens when you find out a member of production wants to be a presenter. And that's probably not fair.
Yeah, it's totally not.
It's not totally fair, but there certainly is. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself, being a bit oh, right. And I think it comes from if you want to be a presenter, I think people just assume that you're probably just fame hungry. And I think there are two different types of people who want to be a presenter. And when people approach me and say they want to be a presenter, I don't really know what to advise them because I didn't set out to be one. I can advise people how to get a job for the BBC because I worked damn hard at that. But the presenting thing kind of was a bit being in the right place at the right time for me. It was luck rather than me trying to get it. But also, if I was going to be honest with someone, I'd say, right, if you want to be a presenter because you think it looks like loads of fun, you'll have as much fun behind the scenes as well. Work on doing that. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But what you should love is coming up with ideas, writing stories, writing scripts, being creative, being in a buzz of a TV and radio environment. Yeah. And if that's not what you want and you just want to be on the telly or the radio and that is it, literally all I'd suggest is therapy. Yeah. Because I think that comes from a place inside us of wanting to feel special and important. And being a presenter will give you that temporarily, but at times it will suck it out of you and kick you to the ground and tell you that you're worthless. So I don't think it can ever be, you can't ever fill a hole in your life by being on the telly or on the radio. So if just being a person that's known, a known person, and being a bit famous is what you want, it's just a bad idea.
There's a reason why in musicals and Disney Channel shows and things like that, people are like, get out of the way, I'm going to be the star of the villains. There's a reason why they're the bad guys. It's because they're obnoxious. But no, but it's true, because it's this is a common thread, and it happened with myself. This was never the goal, but you certainly had passions in that world and a knowledge of that world that made it so that it was just a natural transition. All right, I'll screen test. And then after the screen test, it's yeah, no, absolutely, we're bringing Katie on board. Let's do this. Yeah. Because you had that skill and that passion there.
And also with you, I suppose, you were doing your YouTube videos and stuff. People. But you were... you obviously had this funny personality. You wanted to make up sketches. You wanted to be a bit silly. You wanted to perform. That was just in you. And that's not you wanting to be famous or being fame hungry. That's you having this natural desire to perform. And
I just want to make people laugh.
We've discussed this before. Yeah. If that's what you want to do, you should be having as much fun doing that, whether you're doing it in front of 10 people in your local town centre, hall or whatever, or if you're a Hollywood star doing it, because you're doing the same thing. And if it's actually the enjoyment, the performing, whether it's acting, singing, dancing, writing, whatever it is, if it's actually the enjoyment of that thing you like, you should enjoy that. You know, Phil should enjoy that, whether he's doing Hacker on a massive stage in front of, you know, I was going to say thousands of kids at Summer Social. I don't think they quite get that many, do they? Hundreds of kids at Summer Social, or on telly in front of hundreds of thousands of people watching.
Christmas lights, Manchester.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That gets thousands. Or if he's outside B&M with his little puppet show, like he was back in the day, doing it, like what you're doing.
Picking up paint while he's there.
Yeah, exactly. Get some paint and a grab bag of Maltesers at the same time. B&M is great.
It's beautiful.
Use our code Yonko's Podcast.
God,
126. Yeah. So yeah, basically,
if they just want to hire me to stack shelves, I'll take that.
If you enjoy that thing, is what I'm saying, then you should enjoy it, whether you're doing it to an audience or not. And if it's just that you kind of want to be a bit famous, then that's no good. And we both obviously had those things in us that people saw. You were spotted on YouTube. I was spotted in the office messing about there. And now I think about it, like, I can talk for England. I can talk until you stop me talking. I can talk about any subject you give me for however length of time. And you do need that as a presenter.
Oh, God, absolutely.
So obviously we both had something. We had a confidence. We had a silliness. We had a willingness to laugh at ourselves and make other people laugh. But yeah, that was obviously spotted by other people. We weren't both trying to get famous.
Do you remember when you first started doing lives? Because if I recall, you started a few months before Ian left, and you had like a special Katie's own slot during the weekend broadcasts, pre-records, and that was sort of like it was like a warm-up ground for you to get used to it. I worked with Dodge, like we came in to do random sketches and things like that, and then I took over the afternoons from Ian. With me and Hacker on the lives, and you and Warwick, Dodge the Dog, were on the weekend mornings and pre-recorded mornings. Was your first like live where you were in the driver's seat, as it were, like delivering the content, Katie and Dodge, was that the first half terms of 2013?
It probably was, yeah.
How did you feel in that environment?
I remember thinking, I feel so sick, that sort of sick feeling as they're sort of counting down, they're going 10, 9, 8, and you feel sick. And I remember thinking, I'll always feel like this. And, you know, Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby must be feeling like this, you know, 10 seconds.
14, 15 times a morning, every Monday to Friday.
This morning's happening. But actually, I really don't think they are. I reckon they're sat there on their phones, chatting away about something they've done at the weekend until they literally go live and they're fine with it. And so am I now. And I remember I would watch you guys, and like you and Ian especially, shall we say, would be like on his phone, literally, and they'd be like 5, 4, 3, and he's like on Twitter or something. They just put it at 2, 1, hello, and I'd be like, why are you not more stressed? Like I'd watch him and I'd think, how are you just like on your phone, not even thinking about what you're about to say? But then of course, you know, fast forward a year, and that was me as well. And I used to think this nervous feeling will never go, but that first summer of lives just knocked it straight out of me.
Summer is brutal. The very first time you do summer, it's an attack on your mind, body and soul, especially because you were doing the mornings.
Yeah.
I'd done 3 summers of that before that summer. I'd done 2010, 2011, 2012, and it is a mind meld. Like, it is this weirdly knackering experience that you don't realise how exhausting it is till week 2, and your body starts to go, we're nearly done. What? 5 weeks left. Okay, that's fun. Because, like, when you guys at home, when you're watching that sort of stuff yourself, or when you're watching it, or if you're watching it with your kids or younger brothers and sisters, like, you see from sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock, the presenters are on between the shows. We've been there since, like, 6, if not earlier.
Yeah.
In makeup, pre-recording stuff for later, rehearsing, doing the links, working till about 10, half 10, and then stick around for another 2 or 3 hours to bank stuff for later or for the weekends. And then you get out, and in a humane society, you'd be allowed to go and have a nap somewhere. But 9 times out of 10, it'd be, we're having a brainstorm or a meeting about that thing. Could you just grab something to eat and then come to the brainstorm? You get home about 4 or 5 o'clock. And by that point, you don't want to stay up till it's the right time to go to sleep for the next shift. And I know it's not working down a mine. I know it's not, I know it's not been on the NHS.
As Phil would say, we could be down the mines, Chris.
Yeah, because he's from Wigan. Nearly everyone in Wigan works down the mines. Don't at me, it's true. But like, there's an energy, and there is like you say, you bring in your A game, you bring in energy, you bring in talk, you bring in banter, and you're also having to do it in a very positive way, that regardless of what's going on in your life, the moment that camera's on, you are the audiences. Yeah. Like, you belong to them in that moment, and you're there to make their day great. So you get to the end of a long day. If you're holding on to a bunch of other things in your head, you get home, you're like, ugh.
Oh, it completely saps your energy.
7 weeks of that. That's the summer holidays.
Yeah, and exactly. And that knocked all the nerves out of me. And I've just realised now that, I don't really get nervous for anything now. I might get nervous before, like, we had Cheryl Cole on Radio 1 the other day, did a pre-record with her. I was slightly nervous, like, I might be slightly nervous working with someone really famous.
She was in your pop cultural, like, zeitgeist for years, especially, like, I imagine you probably were listening to, like, Girls Aloud and Cheryl and stuff when you were younger, so I get that. She permeates younger Katie's sort of mental sphere.
When someone's really famous like that as well, I always just get a bit nervous that either they'll be difficult or their people will be difficult. But actually, she was just amazing, gorgeous, lovely, so down to earth. So were her people. Like, it was honestly like we'd just known each other years. She was just great. And I get nervous. I guess I was nervous for like my first Radio 1 show.
That was
because it was new.
What, going on 2 years now?
Yeah, probably nearly 3 years ago that I started doing the cover. I've been doing it properly, like full time once a week for 2 years now. But it was 3 years ago I started picking up bits of cover. But I rarely get nervous for anything now. It's just completely gone out of me. I'm almost numb to nerves now. And sometimes I think, oh, is that bad? Because when they say, oh, nerves show you care. I'm like, does that mean I don't care? And I'm like, no, I do care. It's just that you can't be sick with nerves every day of your life. So it has to be knocked out of you. I always say our job is like that day at work where you have to do a presentation every single day, or that day at school where you have to stand up in front of the class every single day.
Yeah.
So you don't get nervous about it anymore once you've done it that often.
After a time.
And you know what? If there's one thing, I mean, there's many great things that have come out of me doing this job, but confidence, it has massively, massively made me a more confident person. Like, I can't physically be embarrassed now by anything. Because the job is just one big embarrassment, isn't it?
That's true, yeah. It was kind of just a gauntlet of what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm doing it. Here we go. I'm alive. Let's do it.
So I rarely feel any nerves in that sort of way.
How did you handle live physical in the room? There they are. They're looking at me audiences. Because I found I grew up in like trained theatre. That was my start. But then I realised after a long time doing CBC presentation that it was sort of different in a way. You're talking like you're talking to one person when you're addressing that camera. And then suddenly, I think the first thing I did after ages was we did like an event at BBC Scotland. We did like some Q&As and things like that. And suddenly there was a room of like 700 kids.
Yeah.
And it just hit me. I was like, God, I've not done this in ages. This is weird.
Yeah.
And I felt a little flutter then in my stomach. I was
Yeah.
like, this is odd. Like, how did you feel, say, like when you were starting to do the BAFTA events regularly? And have you done a light switch on? One of the Magical Light Switch ons?
Yeah.
That's an odd experience, isn't it?
I was really nervous for the Christmas light switch on, actually. Cause...
This is the Manchester one. This is a town hall, average 10 to 12,000 people in that space.
It's unbelievable how many people are there. And it was a big deal for me, like being from Manchester, going to those Christmas light switch-ons, like, I was like, this is huge. And also, very unluckily, the week before that, I'd had like an infected wisdom tooth that was impacted into my jaw.
Yeah.
And I had to have an emergency like removal of this tooth. And my face was swollen like about 4 times the size on one side. And I spent a week off work in bed.
Just willing it smaller.
Yeah, eating ice cream and watching episodes of Friends, because the week after I was due on Celebrity Mastermind.
Oh, God, you had it all going on in that 2 weeks.
So, honestly, I ended up doing the Christmas light switch on. I've got a hilarious picture of me and Christina, the CBBC makeup artist, because I came into makeup on that Friday and was like, just make my eyes look really big to try and distract away. Like, she just did, like, amazing eye makeup. There was no distraction.
Just turn me into a Funko Pop.
Honestly, my face was hilarious. I went and did the Christmas light switch on. Obviously, it's fine because everyone's really far away. But I remember Warwick just being like, I love it. You look like you've had work done. Like a Hollywood actress. Like, looked like I'd had a facelift gone wrong.
He's so
I was just kind of like a little bit, I know, I was just kind of a little bit high on painkillers and confused at that Christmas light switch on after all that anyway. But yeah, I was nervous when I started doing those things with the audience. It is different because you can actually see them looking back at you. I think it is almost worse in a way. But you know what I found? I'm fine with kids' audiences, but I get more nervous when they're adults. I hosted the Nursery Awards on Friday night, and I actually did feel a slight little titter. I thought, oh, I never feel nervous for these things. Why do I feel a bit nervous? And I think it's because I'd spent an hour and a half sitting down having dinner at this awards ceremony with all these people around me.
Yeah.
It kind of built it up a bit because I'd been sat around them, and then all of a sudden I had to go up and host it. and they were all adults, and you kind of feel like they're staring back at you, expecting a bit more from you, whereas kids are just a little bit kinder, I think, and just excited to see you.
They're preset in a way, like some know you from other things, and some just like, oh, you're lovely, hi, you're in charge of the thing, you're going to be saying stuff.
Yeah, they're just happy it's not their teacher.
Yeah.
So they're like, great, with someone who's not our teacher.
At a corporate gig, you've got more people to sort of have to win to your side.
Are like,
almost.
yeah, go on, get it wrong.
Go on.
But luckily,
go on,
it all went
TV
really
radio
well.
lady,
Exactly.
you bugger up.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
think people are like,
why would
who
you
do
want
think
that?
you are?
Like, why would you want that? I'm just here to say the words and make things work.
But actually, everyone was just lovely and came over afterwards and was like, oh, you did a great job, and everyone was really nice. But yeah, I think weirdly I'm more comfortable with kids' audiences, and I think most people probably the other way around. Most people probably be scared of kids. But I think because we've spent so many years presenting for kids, I kind of feel like I know how to handle them.
You've got the tone right.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Mine, spoiler alert for a future episode. I'm going to have to sit you down again because there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk to you about. Including I really want to go into Dear Katie, and I want to talk about the process of the creation of Dear Katie. But in the meantime, you lot do revision, go to Amazon and bloody buy it. No, it's on that. Go to a brick and mortar bookstore. More cash. Anyway.
It's probably not in there. It's in Waterstones, I think.
It's bloody well is by Jiminy.
If it's not in your local bookstore, you must ask them to order it.
I seek it out. Yes, do that. Do that. I seek it out and I wite my autograph in them. I don't, but could you imagine? Just like, hello!
Probably
across the
forged mine
pages.
by now. You've probably seen it enough times.
That's true. Right, here's a scandalous question before I crack on with the patrons' questions. Have you ever had to forge hacker or dodges?
Oh no, but I'm really like I can barely even do my own signature, so I wouldn't do a very good job of that. Why have you?
I've had to do dodges at least once.
I reckon you'd be good at it though.
I had one to copy from, to be fair, because he sort of does like the little nose and the ears and the shape.
Here's a sickening thing that really does my head in. Pretty much everyone in CBBC HQ, every single presenter can draw really well, apart from me and Karim. So you can draw, Warwick and Phil can draw, Lauren can draw, and Reese can draw. Like they're like really well. Like you could all be illustrators, like you're all really good at drawing like cartoony drawings and stuff. Phil and Warwick, I think it comes quite closely with puppeteering, doesn't it, to be able to draw, because they kind of sketch out their
drawing
puppets
those characters and creating them. Yeah.
So you're all so brilliant at drawing, and whenever we have to draw an example, it's like, kids are going to design an autumn leaf. Can you do your own first? Ours look like a 2-year-old's done them, like me and Karim. I've been sent in by a CBBC viewer, and then yours are always amazing. It's so annoying.
Well, thank you for that ringing endorsement.
All of the CBBC presenters are available to illustrate your work, apart from me and Karim.
Yeah, no, actually, no, especially Katie and Karim. They are definitely available. I want to see a book with your illustration on the front cover. Just because it'd be like, wait, what?
What's happened there?
The bio at the back. It's just like, the artwork was done by Katie Thistleton, who admittedly does not like drawing, nor can draw, apparently. Please enjoy her illustrations throughout the book.
Maybe that would make it a little bit more fun. Everyone would be like, wow, this is like modern art.
I'll tell you after we've recorded, but there's a book, a coffee table book based on something me and Phil used to do that I'm currently putting together that hopefully will go somewhere. It'd be quite nice, but that involves terrible drawing.
Drawings.
I'll get into that. But first, dear Katie, my thistle whistle, my treasure. I've got some questions from the patrons. I'm going to kick off with now we've already talked about this in one way, but I'm going to twist it a little bit. This is from Rainbow Sky. Rainbow Sky asks, how did you get the CBBC presenter job? What was the process like? Now, we've talked about that, but I want to ask you specifically, what was your screen test?
So my screen test was going into studio with Hacker and doing a link, and I would think it was a standard link that they used for all the screen tests, and it was basically me saying, yeah,
hi, I'm Ian. Wait, what?
4 o'clock club's coming up next or whatever, and Hacker was being a bit naughty and I had to hit him with a plastic fish. And I think they wanted to see like how you were with the puppet, because I think one of the main things that people fall back on, I've now realised, is like they treat the puppets really weirdly, like they're like, ugh, and they look at the man. Maybe because I'd already sort of worked with you lot, I was okay and comfortable with Hacker, I don't know. And then I also had to do like a piece to camera for a minute talking about a CBBC show, was it? And why I like that particular CBBC show.
Oh, did they ask you to like pick one and come and say something about it?
And you had to like tie a story about your life into it. So I think I talked about
that's
Wizards.
A bit in-depth.
Yeah, I know. I think I talked about Wizards versus Aliens and talked about when I once thought I saw a UFO, but it turned out just to be Key 103. He'd hired one of those like blimp things to advertise.
I remember that.
But I was convinced. I got all my family upstairs. I was like, I can't believe this. Call the news.
Call the news.
Call the Queen. And it was and then as it got closer, it said Key 103 on it. Yeah, I think it was around like the Commonwealth Games or something like that.
I remember that, yeah, because it was sort of over where now Etihad is, isn't it?
It was,
sort of,
yeah. Honestly, it was the most exciting moment of my life. I couldn't believe it. I thought, this has happened. I have spotted a UFO.
And then they went, does that work for you? Watching the screen test back. They were like, I don't know, is that what this sounds about? I'm not sure. I'm a producer. I'm too busy to watch the content. We leave that to the presenters.
That was basically the screen test. And Warwick Brownlow Pike sat in the corner, just like giving me side eye. Because he was like he was obviously just a bit nervous about who was going to be the new presenter, who was going to be his new co-host, and he worries about these things. So he was obviously a bit worried. So he was in the corner like looking over at me like, oh no, not her.
Well, he and I had a history at that point of being put into double acts a lot. Like I had like 4 or 5 before it was me and Dodge consistently. And then so I suppose he was probably like, he
was worried.
It was the breakup. He was like, Chris and Dodge is about to end. Like,
yeah.
Who's going to be new Chris?
He was apprehensive, and I totally get that now. But luckily, we, absolutely.
He just gives side-eyed on his Warwick.
He did give me some
not in like a mean way, but it just sort of looks a bit like,
he did really intimidate me. It's really out of order.
Well, to be fair, a man lying on the floor in a little Peaky Blinders cap, like with his arm up a dog's bum.
He did have his Peaky Blinders cap on as well. But luckily, we obviously hit it off and are the best of friends, and he's one of the best people I've ever met in my life. So it all worked out well.
There you go, Warwick. Take that clip, put it on the CV. Like he needs to put anything on there now after bloody Dark Crystal.
Oh my god, he doesn't have to put anything on his CV.
Just whack up a picture of a
There's no more room.
Just draw one on the front.
Have you done a CV, by the way, in like years? I haven't done a CV in a long
time. I've got 2 CVs that I recently tweaked. I've got a broadcasting performing work one, and I've got a normal work one, and it's hilarious when you look at the two, because it's like one of them, it's like, God, this guy looks like he's qualified. The other one's like, this guy looks like he's done nothing in his life. It's like, I started young, leave me alone. This one's from Matty. Hello, Matty. Matty says, what led to the decision to leave CBBC? Oh. And was it a difficult one, or were you excited for future projects? You can go as in-depth in this as you like.
Do you know, I had a dream last night, and it must have been because we were doing this podcast today that
she'd murdered someone, and she's on the lam, basically.
I dreamt last night that... I just had a dream about that I was missing CBBC so much, and I am. But in my dream, I was like heartbroken about it, and I woke up and I honestly.
And then
felt
you woke up
sad.
and remembered Jedward's Big Adventure and went, "Actually, I'm fine."
No, I woke up and felt really sad. The decision to leave was because, I suppose, no one ever really lets you settle, like you were saying before. You don't let yourself settle, and no one else lets you settle in this business. And for years, people have been asking me, what's next? And we're always talking about what's next and when we leave. Yeah, exactly. So for years, it had been on my mind, like, when will I leave CBBC? Like, you're never allowed to just be settled, are you? And I think I at first said, oh, maybe after 5 years, because I just thought that seems like a nice time. Then we did the 30th anniversary show.
That was cool.
And I discovered that Angelica Bell was the longest running press presenter, and she'd done it for 6 years. Yeah. And I was already in, well, I didn't think it at the time, but then once I was already into my 5th year, I kind of thought, oh, I should definitely stick it out and do 6 and a bit now and beat her record. But also it just came at a really good time. I kind of chatted to our boss Ian France and kind of hinted at him that, maybe I should start thinking about going. I felt a bit like I'd obviously done it for years and could do it with my eyes shut. If I was just in there doing a live afternoon with Phil every day, God, I'd have never left until they pushed me, because it's just the best job in the world. But when it comes to like maybe doing the pre-records in the morning and stuff like that, I'd done a lot of that, and I had started to think, you know what, I have done this and I've done this and I've done this to death.
Did you find that weird fatigue when, and this is no slight to the people taking this position per se, because they don't know really, but like when you get to that new team of researchers, maybe a new producer, and certain gags boomerang back around that you did years ago, because it's the sort of the obvious first gag for someone who's just been told you have to write a thing about this show.
All these things come around. Christmas comes around, Easter comes around, another series if the dumping ground comes around, Wimbledon comes around, and then you start to think, God, I've done a lot of these, and I was in no way bored, because it is the best job in the world. And God, it's easy work. I mean, we
once
turn
that
up
ball's
there,
rolling, yeah.
we mess about, we laugh for a living. It's not a proper job. And when I was leaving, I was under no pretense that I was going to be going on to bigger and better things. I was like, this is the biggest and best thing in TV. It might not look that way to the outside world. People might not think, CBBC is the biggest and best job as a presenter.
Bank account may not agree.
No, but it is. What other job in TV can you go in, do what you want on the telly, work with your best friends, with really fun people,
Slap
do
a
it
dog
on
with
your
a fish.
doorstep?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was a combination of I had done it the longest of any presenter that had ever done that and thought, well, come on, don't overstay your welcome now, because people might start to get a bit, the bosses might start to think it's time to move her on, and you don't ever want to be in that position. You always want to leave before you're pushed. You want to jump before you're pushed. And also they started to change things around that time. It was coming up to the end of the financial year, and I just sort of said to my boss, I need to think about when to leave. And then he approached me and said, well, do you know, they're kind of changing things. Lots of redundancies were happening in BBC Children's. The team was changing. My boss was leaving. They were going to start bringing in some new presenters. It felt like if leaving then made sense, because it was the end of a certain era. And if I stayed, it would have really felt like I was clinging on. And you know what? I had Radio On, and I was spreading myself a bit too thin as well. I was so busy trying to fit in other stuff around CBBC. I was exhausted. So I did want to give myself a bit more time to focus on those things. So do you know what? It was perfect, because I left happy. I wasn't sick of it. I wasn't sick of anyone. I loved everyone. I was sad to leave, but also I knew it was the right time. So it honestly just felt perfect. That last day was happy, sad for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have wanted to wait until I got sick of it, or wait until they wanted to get rid of me.
I think it's the sort of job where, like, if you are feeling like, oh God, why am I still doing it? Then you know it's the wrong time. You should have gone sooner.
Exactly.
Like, you should have gone out on that high.
I felt like I left at the most perfect time, and no regrets about. And 6 years is a good run.
Is that? Yeah, I was going to say, it's 6 years. So you 6 years consistently on the weeks, aside from obviously going away on holiday, like consistently in the weekdays.
6 years consistently.
And the last sort of year was like 2-3 days a week, and that kind of shift work, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I started...
So like Angelica would have been doing, because like everyone wasn't structured. They were here, there and everywhere.
Yeah. So 6
I
years...
think I'm a close third.
Yeah, you probably are.
You're counting Shout Out Saturday.
You probably are.
Then I did 6 and a bit years.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you might even be... I don't know. I don't know anyone's exact dates, I'll be honest with you. I don't know exactly how long Angelica Bell did it for, but I think, the three of us are definitely up there then.
We should all have a fight.
We should. I don't know what Angelica's exact dates are. I know I started on my first live link was, I think it was like the 13th of January.
Yeah, because you appeared a few times before you started, didn't you? You appeared with Ian a few times.
Yeah, I did.
And you did some stuff with me and Dodge a couple of times.
Yeah.
Speaking of Prez, patron Sophie McCoy says, hello Sophie.
Hi Sophie.
Sophie worked on a bunch of CBBC stuff with us over the years, including Whoops, I Missed the Bus, rest in peace. What was your scariest ever live moment in Prez and your favourite? Oops, that's 2 questions. Go with scariest. Favourite we'll touch on again, because I'm going to have to get you back. There's a bunch of stuff I want to run past you about Prez things. But what was your scariest live moment?
Well, it would just be the first one, I would have thought. And the first one, actually, not the first one on my own, probably the first one with Ian and Hacker. Because that was just the first time I'd ever been on the telly, and it's awful to watch back. Like, you can see my nervous face.
Never go back.
Horrendous.
Never go back.
It's awful. And I was a little bit intimidated by Ian, and I thought...
It's weird. You say, hi, my name's Katie, and he just immediately replies with, tonight! What are you saying?
I'm not intimidated by
what
it now.
What are you saying, Ian? I'm practicing for something. It's going to happen one day, I swear.
So he got the job. He was just always saying tonight.
Tonight! Oh my God.
Yeah.
I
was quite
the
intimidated
hob. I was
by
cooking tea.
And intimidated by Hacker, because I'd worked in children's, and they were like, the gods, weren't they?
He's so quick.
Like, Ian and Hacker were put on a real pedestal in children's, so I was quite intimidated by them both, really. Obviously not now. I just know that they're both pair of losers like me. Now I know we're all just losers. But that was the most nervous. And my favourite would be any time that Hacker has made me laugh to the point of nearly wetting myself and crying, of which I've got a great YouTube video of bloopers, and me and Phil watch them regularly. We used to watch them on the afternoons. Like, how obnoxious we would sit there in between links watching ourselves on the telly and laughing at ourselves. But it's just joyous, because it's genuine tears and genuine laughter.
Those bits are my favourite. I mean, again, we'll touch on this another time, but that the umbrella link The horses link. I'm playing with this
Oh
stapler.
my god, Chris. That's one of my favourite live links ever as well.
How the hell did we... How did that qualify for us to be paid that day? If anyone wants to know what I'm talking about, I'll put it up on Instagram or tweet it, because it's mental.
I think that's probably one of the first times that I'd properly corpsed on the telly, actually.
Oh, you were gone? You were gone before you finished your first line?
Yeah.
And I think it was the exact same reason as me. You just realised as we were starting it, are we about to seriously do this? This is the most ridiculous thing.
We were giddy, and I was crying in the rehearsal, because I remember, as we were counting down to live, I was crying. And I remember Andy Potter going, oh, God, in the gallery, because he could tell that it was not going to go well, because I was already crying and we'd not even started the link.
So much stupid stuff like the vase that's always there, things like that. We're just like, what is this? Not the vase that's always there, Chris.
Oh, you're making me miss it so much.
Don't miss it. Here, I'll try and distract you with a question that's got nothing to do with CBBC. Lego Bookworm. Hello, Lego Bookworm. Lego Bookworm says, what was your favourite programme during your childhood? And did you have a favourite presenter?
Ooh, favourite programme. Do you know what? I had Sky at home.
Oh,
yeah,
one of the posh ones,
posh kid. I had Sky at home. So I was a proper Nickelodeon kid, Cartoon Network and stuff, and loved Sabrina, Sister, Keenan and Kel.
Oh my god, what was
Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, Rugrats.
Oh my god! Right, can we have another hour?
I know. If only we did have another hour.
That entire run, like.
Oh, that was a time, Cow and Chicken. That was a time to be alive. But my grandma's, she didn't have Sky, so then I would watch The Queen's Nose and Peter and stuff like that.
Oh, I legitimately love The Queen's Nose in a way that's sort of unnatural, because it was that first TV show that made me as a kid realise, wait, this stuff can be really kind of disturbing. Yeah, what are they? Why are they all morality plays? What is this? Things like Round the Twist and stuff like that.
Oh, Round the Twist, yeah.
Oof, goosebumps.
Angelica Bell and Kirsten O'Brien were the press presenters, I think, when I was watching. And I loved them too. And when I met them for 30th, I was actually I'd already met Angelica, actually. I was quite nervous to meet Kirsten O'Brien. Yeah. And she told when I said hello to her, she said the most crude story that I cannot say on this podcast. The first thing she told me was basically something someone was doing on the tram that they shouldn't have been doing on the tram. But the words that she used, did not hold back swearing. And I was like, wow, my childhood heroes just said that word to me. So the first thing she said to me is that. And I'm going to keep that in my mind now whenever I meet any adults who used to watch me on Kids Telly, to not...
use that exact same anecdote. Yeah. Just do it. Just continue the chain.
Not use any crude words, because even though you're now both adults, it's still going to be weird for them.
Katie, says Chris Wood. This must be for you. Katie says, it must be difficult keeping everything child-friendly and suitable for broadcast sometimes. Tell Kirsten O'Brien. What's the closest you've come to saying or doing something that would get you fired for inappropriate behaviour on air, and did you get in trouble? Can you recall a time where you nearly stepped or leapt over the fence?
Do you know what? I don't think I have even nearly sort of swore or said anything like that. It's really funny. It's kind of like you have a built-in censor. It's like when you're in front of your parents or your teachers or something. Yeah. You have a built-in censor, don't you? You know that you speak differently around different people.
Community radio, I think, as well. Being in that environment and listening to people, or be it yourself, not ever breaching it, you kind of get used to the idea of, I'm in a room with a microphone, so I will not say a rude thing on that microphone. Yeah,
exactly. But certainly off air, when we're in that room, we've said terrible things that would have us all imprisoned, never mind sacked.
Just for bad taste. Actually, not confessions to murder.
Yeah, when I was on community radio, actually, I did say a certain swear word. You'll be able to imagine which one it is, because I was saying, what do you call a Twitter user? Are they twits? Are they? And I said another word beginning with T. But luckily, that was only on community radio, and there's probably 3 people listening, so it didn't really matter.
Jim in the Grocers was just like, how dare she? I would complain, but I don't know how to text. So I shan't text in.
Yeah, exactly. I think I've been all right with that. And also, do you know what I'm amazed that I've never done? Called Phil or Warwick instead of Hacker and Dodge. I cannot believe I've never done that.
I'll have to ask him to make sure, but I think even Ian's crossed that line. I think even Ian said Phil at least once. There have been a couple
of times where it's nearly left my mouth and I've stopped and said Hacker or Dodge. So, but I don't know how that's never happened. I
tripped into hacks. Like if I knew I was sort of having that moment, I'd say hacks. And I think that's where I started saying hacks more than Hacker. But
I don't know how I've never said Phil or Warwick.
Maybe because you just saved it to the end of the link and then slapped him on the knee and be like, why did you do that? It was live.
I think I might have called Phil Hacker in real life. And I think I'm doing it the other way around. I think I've called him Hacker.
They sound the same now anyway. And finally, I'm so sorry if I mispronounced this. Is that Ife?
Aoife, probably.
Aoife, probably. Aoife the Awesomest. I'm going to learn that for next time. Send it to me on the Discord.
I think it's Aoife. Thank you to CBBC for teaching me how to say lots of children's names. Neve, exactly.
I didn't know about Neve.
It's not Naeem.
Yeah, I didn't even know how common it was until I worked at CBBC. I was like, oh my god, there's so many Neves.
There really
or
are.
a very persistent Neve. What was your favourite moment throughout the 6-year CBBC career? And if you could go back in time to do it all again, would you? Yes, I know this is technically 2 questions.
What was
Laughing
my
time, crying
what was
emoji.
the first part? What was my...
Your favourite moment throughout the 6 years?
Oh, God, it's impossible to think of a favourite moment. Do you know what? The 30th celebration was amazing because I presented that along with Kel.
Yeah.
And I felt, it's the first time I kind of felt really confident in my presenting abilities to hold together like a whole hour live show. So I just remember feeling really great, and all the past presenters were there, so it was really good fun. And I felt really like special that I was presenting it, and all these past presenters were there, and I was able to do it. And had
it's kind of an awakening, isn't it? You sort of went, oh my god, this is what this means.
This is what this means.
Because I'm sort of feeling it for the people I watched, and it's like, oh wow, is this what it all led to?
And it was just a great. So it was called Aka's Birthday Bash, I think it was, wasn't it? And it was just a brilliant show.
Branding.
Yeah. Gotta get Aka's name in
He barely
there.
did anything in it as well. He was just there. Oh, it's my birthday, cockers. Katie and Kel, over to you.
Yeah.
You guys juggle all the work.
Fun show to watch, to be a part of. So that was definitely a highlight. Anything where we were out and about doing stuff as well, like Wimbledon.
Oh yeah, that can be stressful, and then you realise that you're the weirdos there, and it kind of becomes fun in retroactively.
They know nothing about. I don't think they ever sent anyone who knows anything about sports to that. It was either me or you, and we care less about tennis.
One of my links from Wimbledon's on my show, in the showreel I'm editing at the minute, and it just begins with me and Hacker looking at the court, watching a game, going, "Oh, what's your favourite bit? I like the green. I'm a fan of the balls and that." So we don't give a like. I read out match results at the start of a link for that afternoon so far, and then I just throw the card away.
It feels like tennis royalty when you watch around Wimbledon, because he's been there so often. He's like, Andrew Castle, hey, how's it going?
It's so weird.
I know, but we just mess about. We basically make a mockery of tennis when we're there, and yet they have us back every year. I think Phil's there this week, today possibly even.
Yeah, sat doing links between like Sky News and,
exactly.
and BBC 24 Hour. They're just looking at you like, will you keep it down? We're like, no.
That was always good fun. And also, so we're like the summer socials. The first one we ever did, do you remember, in Leeds? CBBC Live in Leeds?
Yes, yeah.
I loved that because I was quite new then, and it was the first time we did anything like that.
That was the year of the lean.
It was the first one. It was.
Taking loads of photos leaning.
It was so nerve-wracking, but so much fun. Yeah, when I think back to those times when we're all together and it's like a big party, that's always good fun. Christmases as well. Oh my God, I'm going to be heartbroken this year when I'm not on CBBC at Christmas.
Yeah, I'm not a Christmas guy, and it took getting into Panto to get over not doing the Christmas like content and everything. It's a big thing.
Oh, I love Christmas.
So would you, for part 2 of that question, would you, if you could do those 6 years again, would you do those 6 years again?
1,000,000 times over. I would do those 6 years on repeat, over and over and over again.
There's no residuals though. So
yeah, best 6 years of my life, best job ever, and only got better and better as I became more comfortable with it and was closer to everyone. Like, just, it's like just working with best mates, isn't it? It's just gorgeous. Aww. It's the best job ever.
Aww.
Yeah, do it over and over and over again.
You soppy sausage.
But in the words of Take That, is it Take That?
Let it shine.
It's time for it to be someone else's dream now.
Oh, yeah.
I think they say something like that.
Yeah. Was that when 2 of them had already buggered off? And
yeah.
It's like, we're done now.
Yeah.
You 3 deal with it. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, this has been so fun. I know we've been chatting for like a full hour, but it's gone so quick.
It always it zooms by. And the thing is, this could be longer than an hour 5 minutes because there's adverts and I have to do a little talk at the beginning.
All those
B&M
pushes that you've got to put in there.
Use the code Yonko. Oh god, that'd be amazing. I'm pushing for it now. I've got 2 weeks to edit this, so I'm gonna push for B&M sponsorship.
Get to B&M for multi-packs of jelly babies.
Yeah,
just use our code Yonko623
for all your gelatin infant needs.
Do you want the rest of these gelatin infants, by the way? Because I've eaten all the colours I like.
Oh, go on then. But on one condition. You tell them where they can find you online and on the radio and that.
Okay, yes. So now that I'm not on CBBC, just ignore the rustling of the jelly babies packet. It's like ASMR. If you want some jelly babies, I've got some jelly babies for you. Oh, I hate it. I hate ASMR. Oh. Okay, so now I'm not on CBBC. I do a radio show on a Sunday afternoon on Radio 1 called Life Hacks from 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. And I also do a bit of cover on Radio 1, a bit of Radio Manchester as well, but that is where you can regularly find me. Books available at Waterstones and Amazon, etc. The link's on my Instagram. And yeah, I'm just Katie Thistleton on Instagram and Twitter and all that. I used to be K-This Beyonce on Snapchat.
I remember.
But I think I changed that to my name because everyone was just like, what's with that weird name? No one could find me.
You were like, how dare you? I stan a queen. All right?
Can I just say I hate people saying I stan?
Me too.
Do you? It's
and
my least favourite.
I'll tell you why. It's because of where it comes from and how many people don't realise how weird that
from?
is. So it comes from Stan, the Eminem song.
Oh, of course it does.
About the psychotic fan who drives off a bridge and endangers him and the life of his pregnant girlfriend.
I did know that, but it gets used so often now I'd forgotten that was the meaning.
And it's that ironic thing of like, oh, I'm not just a fan, I'm a stan.
I'm not much of a fan, I'll drive my wife off a cliff.
Yeah, I'm that much of a fan that I will write handwritten correspondence to my idol and then get annoyed when I don't get a reply in my own blood.
No, it just annoys me. It's not because of the Stan connection. If anything, I quite like the Stan connection. I don't know, it just annoys me. It gets used too often now. Everyone's like, oh,
it's permeated the culture. It's injected itself into the zeitgeist.
We Stan an orange jelly baby.
You're like, well, you can have them.
Yeah.
I prefer the pink ones. The pink and the green, sir.
They are actually my favourite jelly babies, pink and green.
Well, there you go. We've learned many things, but I'd say that was the most important one. Ladies and gentlemen, big love to Katie Thistleton.
Oh, I love you, Yonko.
I'm going to turn off this microphone and then you're going to hug me like any treasure.
And I would love to.
Ta-ra!
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, meat. Out of the Broom Cupboard, Episode 2, starred special guest Katie Thistleton. Was brought to you by producer Talkie Man and this guy, Chris Johnson. Music's by Incompetech. It's available on iTunes and Spotify. And of course, you can subscribe and help donate to the show, patreon.com/OOTBC. Are you looking for nerdy news, geeky gossip, and something to occupy your time on the long and winding road to your inevitable death? Then do we have the pop culture podcast for you? The Big Damn Cast is released for free every Thursday on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Hosted by the majestic man-mountain Matt Watson and his adorable boyish sidekick Chris Yonko Johnson, Big Damn Cast is your one-stop shop for movie news and reviews. Big Damn Cast, the only pop culture podcast on the entire internet. Don't fact check that, because it's true.
Amuse your friends. Startle your enemies. Listen to the synth pop magic of the Pound Shop Boys. Includes your favourites: Fireman Sam, Jamie and the Magic Torch, and Grandad. Pound Shop Boys nostalgia. It's the ideal Christmas gift. Only £8 plus postage on compact disc. Digital download available too. The Northwest's premier synth duo. Great value, great fun, great quality.